Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of New Gameplay Today. I am your host, Marcus Stewart. Joining me is Kyle Hilliard. Hello.
Hey, what's up, Marcus? You're doing some climbing here, it looks like.
I'm trying to. This is Jusant, an upcoming game by Don't Nod, who you might know best as the makers of Life is Strange, or at least, I think Life is Strange 1 and 2 specifically. But they're a studio that does quite a bit of different things. They've done Remember Me, they've done Vampire, they've done, Harmony, The Fall of Reverie, which came out earlier this year. They've got
it's like a visual novel, I think, right? Yeah.
Something like that. And they've got that action kind of game, Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, coming out this year. So they've kind of come out as a studio that's kind of willing to sort of diversify their output. And this is maybe the biggest example. Jusant, I think, premiered, I want to say, at an Xbox showcase or Summer Games Fest this year. I know it was playable at Summer Game Fest Play Days, and I heard that it got a lot of positive buzz from the press that got to play it, and I was given this sort of early build of the game of the first 3 chapters. We're looking at chapter 3 of the game, and I will say, from what I've played so far, I am very impressed with Jusant.
Cool.
So the idea of the game is that you are sort of this nameless climber in this weird sort of world where your one goal is to sort of climb to the top of this tower that's situated on this mountain. So that is the game. You are climbing up a big old mountain, and you've got a cute little companion. You might see him in his backpack there. He's kind of this blue, water frog thing. I'm not sure how you describe him.
Water frog thing. Gotcha.
Yeah, but he's got some weird powers where you might have seen it earlier. You can hold down a button he'll do this kind of pulse, and it can have these different effects on objects in the world where he can cause plants to grow, which you can use to grab and climb, as well as some other gnarly things, just like some ancient artifacts you can sort of trigger with his effect. Other than that, though, what's cool about the game is that it's kind of going for a semi-realistic climbing experience where both of your arms are controlled with the left and right triggers respectively, and you're sort of manually steering both to grab climbing points and pull yourself forward. You've got a stamina meter there that you have to manage, which is actually pretty generous in terms of how long it takes to go down. But every now and then you kind of have to hold the left stick to refill it. As you can see, I'm getting dangerously low there as I'm trying to figure out how to get past this little obstacle, and I just did. So yay for me.
Congratulations.
And yeah, you have this rope there, as you can see, that kind of tethers you in place, which it connects to something every time you grab. And you have 3 climbing stakes that you can use to sort of extend a rope, so you can hit a point where you're like, you know what, I need another, a new slack point for the rope in case I fall. So I'm going to drive a stake into this wall. But the thing is that you don't...
you're making your own checkpoints, kind of, almost?
Kind of, yeah, I guess in a sense. And but the thing is that you only have 3 at a time, so you got to be thoughtful about where you put them. And you can remove them too. You can go back and take it off, and if you're I'd rather this be somewhere else, you can do that. Yeah, I would say what I like about the game is that, despite it going for a more realistic take on climbing, the controls feel really intuitive and smooth. It doesn't feel cumbersome. The animations look great. And probably most importantly is that my hands don't get tired playing it, because you are going to be hitting left and right a lot in the trigger. But at least for me, and I'm also playing on Xbox, it helps that the Xbox controller feels really good, especially
right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, those triggers. But I've done a lot of climbing and holding onto those buttons, as I'm trying to figure out where to go next. And it feels good. Like I said, it feels getting around just feels rewarding in a sense of it's pretty much just one giant puzzle of looking at an obstacle in front of you and trying to figure out, okay, I have these limited tools. How do I get there? How many stakes do I need to drive? How far can I reach? Where do they want me to go? And there's also multiple paths in the environment too. So there's more than one way to reach certain areas, or there's just paths that lead to secrets. As we just saw earlier, there's notes you can grab. And this was a new obstacle I ran to where those plants that you saw, you'll run into those pretty early, but this is the first time you find degradable versions. So now you gotta kind of move your butt before they break apart.
So are you like going back and forth on the triggers? Is that kind of that's the core gameplay?
Well, since each trigger controls one arm, most of the time you're going back and forth of like, left and then right and then left, as you would, if you're climbing something.
Okay.
Sometimes, you can do a left, like, it just depends on what you're trying to reach. Of like, what, I think I can only reach this with my left hand, so I'm going to use that, if that makes sense. But by and large, that is the cadence of switching back and forth, you know. Yeah.
Did you ever play DK King of Swing on like Game Boy Advance? Or what was there was the sequel called Jungle Climber. Did you ever play those games? They were like on DS and Game Boy Advance. Because like what they do is like DK, like you would press the left and right triggers for DK to like grab onto spots on the wall to sort of make his way up. And I was just kind of wondering, I was like, is this feel like the sort of the modern version of that? But I guess you don't have a frame of reference, I suppose.
Yeah.
For those games.
Okay. Looking at this, what do you think? Like, do you think is it similar in that vein, or is it a little more involved?
Not really. Like, because basically, if you can imagine, the way it works is like Donkey Kong is like spinning, like in like 360 degrees in a circle, and then you just have to time the closing of his hands on spots on the wall, and then he'll like spin to the next spot. It's very arcadey, which this does not seem like it is. But I was just wondering with the way you go back and forth on the triggers, if it was similar. Yeah, this feels much more like you said, like a puzzle game, first and foremost.
And what's nice about it is that you're probably noticing that the game's very quiet. Like, this is a very sort of like contemplative game, which is why it's gelling with me. Like, don't nod as stressed. Like, hey, go at your own pace. Take in the sights. There's no rush. It seems like there's an overarching narrative, but it's very light. And honestly, and I'm kind of glad you're on this NGT, Kyle, because I think you might agree that it's got almost like a like something like a Limbo or like a cinematic platformer vibe, where the world is very mysterious. Like, I have an idea of what happened, but if you look around, because like you've seen, like, you'll reach certain milestones in your climbing where you'll find these settlements of like the civilization that's kind of embedded itself into the mountain, and everyone seems to be gone, but you're finding these lore notes. You'll find a series of notes from the same characters, sort of spelling out their day-to-day lives, but giving hints about like what happened to this world, and even looking at some of the like the topical graphical features. I find a lot of like aquatic stuff. Like, there's like, okay, this is like, there's coral here, and I'm wondering, like, was all of this underwater at some point?
Oh, and freaky. Okay.
Yeah, and they keep mentioning stuff about a tide and like a low tide. In fact, the game begins with the definition of Jusant, which I'm probably going to butcher it, but it more or less means like the receding of a tide, I believe, in French.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so even the name has some clue, but like I have some theories about like what happened to this world and what it used to be, and you just get a sense like everyone fled after a tide receded or rose or something like that. But yeah, just looking around the world, like, there's a lot of visual storytelling as you're finding, even if it's not lore notes, just different stores and shops and stuff, and you're like, okay, like, what's going on here? And I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons why, it's fun to climb around and just the challenge of it, but just the idea of like reaching a summit and just finding what's up there and be like, oh, okay, there's like a weird like temple here. What's this all about? I want to see more.
Yeah, that is enticing. Yeah, I like that sort of mystery.
Yeah, I also just love the look of this game. Like, I think it's a beautiful, beautiful game. I think the colors look great. It's kind of got that flat, sort of like pastel-ish look to it that I really like. Like Image 4, I think the animations look great. And then every time you reach like a summit and you look out in the horizon, you can kind of look down and see how far you came. And you're like, oh man, I just climbed all of that. All right. That feels pretty good. I am not a climber in real life. I've done a few like rock climbing and like some very light like actual mountain climbing and back in my Boy Scout days. So it's like the satisfaction of that, it kind of comes through here.
So the vibe that I'm actually getting from it watching you play, which is like a really strong compliment, is it reminds me of a Team Ico games, like Ico and Shadow of the Colossus, and probably maybe the most Last Guardian. just because it
yeah.
like the visual of it, and then all the climbing. Like Last Guardian is a game that's all about climbing everywhere and climbing on top of this giant creature in like a dilapidated castle. You know, T. Michael loves those dilapidated castles. So that's kind of what I'm getting from this, which is, like I said, it's very much a compliment and makes me want to play.
Yeah, that's a great call too, because that's exactly what I was thinking of too. On top of the Limbo comparisons, yeah, it's got that, like I said, that weird like enigmatic element about it, especially the fact that you're just kind of on your own, and you got a cute little buddy there as your only real company, and then maybe the letters of people that may or may not be dead.
I do truly, like, not even joking, like, love a lonely game. Like, one of the things I've always loved about the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games is that they are actually quite lonely. You know, you're Solid Snake alone in like this facility just trying to make progress. Well, not so much too, but that's a whole other thing. But so I like a game where you're just a sole character in a lonely place trying to figure out what's going on, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of that weird, like, it's me versus the game
absolutely,
and no one else. Yeah. So we see this is one of the sort of temples here. As you can see, like, you'll find wall carvings like this, and again, sort of like giving some hints as to, like, you know, is that like a picture depicting the history of this place? Is it depicting what happened to it? Just little things like that. Some of that stuff you can interact with the your little buddy there, which is why I'm pulsing around, just trying to see. There was one wall carving I found where it just kind of like lit up when I used the little guy. So like now I've been trained to, like, every time I see one, I want to do it to see if anything happens. Doesn't look like anything there in that case, but still fun to go down and just sort of stare at it and sort of, again, connect the dots. But like, oh, what the heck is that all about?
Yeah, what is the little guy, like, it's almost, is it like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like scan? Is it almost like you're scanning the environment, kind of, or?
Kind of, like, I don't think he necessarily highlights grab points or anything like that. But if it's like, oh, like, you will see one soon. There's certain objects where you're like, okay, I have to use this guy. We saw it earlier with like the flowers, but there's even like man-made objects where it's like I found a God, what would you call it? It's like a big old stone like light, basically.
Okay.
And when I used my little buddy, it like lit up and it had these like kind of like ocean looking carvings on it, and the thing started spinning around and things were happening. It's like, what is going on here? And like there's a few of those that you'll find. In fact, we'll see one pretty shortly. But yeah, this is kind of my like what we're doing now. You're gonna be doing this a lot. It's just kind of like entering a new area and then immediately looking around and like, all right, where can I go? Like I said, there's so many different little paths, and I kind of like these sort of these areas because they're also nice breaks from climbing of like, okay, this is the part where you just kind of look around, read some notes, soak in the world, and then you're off to climbing again.
You're looking for handholds. What's going on with the rope that's like connecting to spots on the wall? Like, is that just like it automatically goes there to, if you fall, it'll help you, or?
Yeah, it's pretty like anchor points. Like every time you climb anything, there's always one of those around. And they just anchor you in place. So if I were to fall right now, you know, I would just, you can you can hang from the rope, and you can either like zip yourself up, or you can give yourself some slack, like in situations where maybe you need to swing, or you can do like a sort of like wall run thing if you need to cross gaps. So you can kind of dictate the length of it. But yeah, it's just your ankle point, just keep you safe. And I think I had a mild heart attack when I did that because I thought I missed.
It's also weird that you kind of glossed past it, but you're like hanging onto bugs that were like crawling on the wall. That was funky.
Yeah, that was actually the first time I had encountered those up to this point. It's like, okay, like I like that this game, because every level they add another like couple of tricks and sort of like traversal elements. Like the first chapter is pretty simple because they're teaching you the basics. And then the next chapter, like, okay, you have your buddy now, and he can do this. And then this chapter's like, hey, sometimes there's like moving handholds, so you know, keep an eye out for those, and you have to be careful with those because sometimes they'll guide you to somewhere you don't want to be. So you kind of have to keep an eye out, like, hey, where am I supposed to get off of these guys? So yeah, I kind of like that. Like, it makes every chapter exciting, and I want to see how far they go with it. No idea how long this game is going to be. But it was definitely one of those games where like you get into like almost like a zen-like sort of like relaxed state because like the music is so minimal. You might have heard it earlier, but like there's certain points where it starts to swell when you reach like an interesting maybe like point of interest or something like that. And I would say the music I've heard has been pretty good. But other than that, it kind of it feels like a bit of a chill pill where again, it's just about keeping like, like relaxing and taking your time. And okay, there's the thing I was talking about before. So it's behind that wall. The first time I found it was kind of in a big open chamber, but this one they're like, okay, you have to figure out how to get to it. And I'm going to spoil now, I do not get to it in this video.
Okay. But that was the thing that your little buddy reacted to earlier? You found another one of those? Okay.
Yeah, so now it's like, okay, are there one of these every chapter? And I'm not sure what they see. I tried to see, like, okay, will it reach? And I was like, probably not, and clearly no. So yeah, and I kind of left just for the sake of moving things forward, but there's different avenues up in this area. And also, like, the notes are pretty fun to read. They're also very lengthy most of the time, which surprised me. But, you can go back and read some of them. And there's also other little, like, kind of like other, I don't want to say collectibles or, like, interaction points. Like, there's, sometimes you'll find this stack of stones, and then you have to put the last stone on top. And I don't know what that does yet, but I have found a few of them, so I'm assuming there's like an invisible counter somewhere that's like, hey, if you get all of these or enough of these, something might happen. Because they place them out of the way to where you see it, so you see it down there. Like, that's the only reason you would come down here is to do this. So yeah,
there's gotta be something. You're doing something there. They wouldn't just let you do it for fun.
Yeah, there's no fun here. So yeah, I'm curious about that. And then also just like maybe something for getting all the notes about like, maybe there's like some of them are telling like a linear story about like one person and like, oh, this person ran a business and then they had to leave and they couldn't find their family and are you gonna ever meet this person or have they been dead for ever? Who knows? So yeah, I don't know. I like it. I think it's like a fun mix of like the like platforming and some like light storytelling and also just visuals. I'm excited to play more of this, honestly.
Yeah, I like this look here. Like you said, I like a relaxing game isn't necessarily a selling point for me always. I mean, sometimes it is, but I like this sort of idea here, which is almost like a relaxing game, but with like height stakes, right? Like like you could take it slow, but there's always that you might fall right in the background.
Yeah, like it's not relaxing in that it's like easy or like a cakewalk. It just has a vibe where it's like, it's not screaming at you, or there's not like you're not being attacked by enemies, or it's not like anything like that. It's like there's definitely like the stress of like, okay, if I miss this climb, I might fall. And so I better be, especially if I maybe wasn't mindful about putting extra anchor points, so if I do fall, I don't fall as far. Right. And I've had those moments again of like my heart skipping a beat because I missed a jump and I'm like falling, and then you remember like, oh no, I'm not gonna die. I'm tethered to something, but you're still just like, well, I gotta climb all that again, I guess. But yeah, and again, like you said, it's more of a vibe thing of like, okay, it's just me in the game, no one else around. I'm just gonna figure out what I gotta do here as I try to swing over to that little point there and fail time and time again. Spoiler, that is not what you're supposed to do. I think I figure it out in about a minute or so. And I think I'm starting to wise up a little bit here.
Figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good look at Jusant. It's supposed to be coming sometime this year. No release date yet at the time of recording, but if so, I think this will be like the third game that Don't Nod ships this year, because that Banishers game is also still supposed to come out like in the fall.
Is it really?
And they already released Harmony this year too. So like I said, they're busy bees over there suddenly.
They're going crazy.
Thanks for joining me, Kyle.
Thanks for showing off Jusant.
Yeah. And be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more episodes of New Gameplay Today. See you later, guys.